Hi, I'm Chris Burns from Techie Gurus, and welcome back. So, I'm in a dark mood today because it's week number 2 of Cybersecurity Month called Phight the Phish. So, let's break down the 6 things you should look at in every single email to know if it's a phishing attempt, and then I'll actually share my screen and we'll break down the anatomy of a phishing email. So, let's get it going. Step 1, you should always be cautious. Always be careful when opening email. Follow the necessary precautions before clicking on links and opening attachments. Look, you always want to be cautious when you click on something because what you click on could download something or it could take you to a link where you're actually submitting email. So always think before you click. Step number 2 is look for spelling errors. Now, this isn't universal, and threat actors have done a really good job of hiring English-speaking writers to write their copy for them. But for the most part, you're going to see spelling errors. You're going to see missteps that just make an email not seem quite right. So if you see that, make sure that you report it. Make sure you don't click on anything. Better be safe than sorry. Step number 3 is if they're asking you to take an urgent action. So watch out for calls to action that are just like urgent. They're deadline based. The suggested consequence is aimed at creating a panic. Attackers use these time-sensitive and threatening languages basically to get you to click. That's their whole point. They want you to click on something. And it could be, like I said, to download something, or it could be just to go to a link where you fill in your information and then they steal it. This is a social engineering tactic that's commonly used today. Step number 4 is verify the links. They're going to contain links. Are they legitimate? One thing you can do is you can kind of hover over it and see what the URL is. If you see something that doesn't quite look right, like if it says, hey, this is from Microsoft OneDrive, but then you hover over it and it says something like, I don't know, some other URL. We'll kind of break that down. Don't click on it. Again, submit it to support, your IT support, submit it to us if you're a customer. We'll take a look at it and we'll be able to kind of give you an idea of like whether that's a legitimate email or not. Step number 5 is look at the from address. This is usually the dead giveaway. The from address will usually include some variation that doesn't seem right. Like if it says from Microsoft, but then you see like an email address that says Anthony at I'm trying to steal your information.com. Terrible example, but you get the point. That's not a legitimate email. The from address usually gives it away really quickly. The problem is mobile devices. With the smaller screen space, you'll probably miss if it's a really super long address. So you want to make sure to kind of be able to look at it, maybe click on the contact and see what the full email address is before you actually click on the link inside the email. And number 6 is if it's requesting personal information, they may be asking you, and by they I mean threat actors, for certain levels of information. It could be usernames, could be your password, could be personal information, it could be about company's proprietary information. If somebody's going looking for that, it's probably a phishing email. So there, we covered the 6 steps of what to look for in a phishing email. So let me pause this, I'll be right back, and we'll cover what one actually looks like. All right, this is an example of a phishing email. We'll start at the top and we'll kind of work our way down through it. So how do we identify? Now we've already covered 6 steps. I'm going to go a little different order, but the results are the same. We're trying to identify whether this email is legitimate or not. So let's look at the email address at the top. It says office-365 at security.onmicrosoft.com. That is not a legitimate email. When you set up a Microsoft tenant, so when you first establish an Office 365 or a Microsoft 365 account, on Microsoft is the default. So somebody literally just went out there and set up security.onmicrosoft.com, slapped Office 365 at the beginning and started sending out phishing emails. So that's the first thing you should look at. Second, we kind of go down, it's a PDF invoice. Typically, Microsoft will send you a link that you actually sign into. They don't necessarily send you a PDF. So that's kind of like that's the second step. You're like, okay, so the email looks fishy. Now it's got an attachment on there. Okay, so your alarm bell should be ringing right now. Should be like, okay, well, wait. Then, dear customer, doesn't even have your name. Okay, so now we're 3 in. Okay. And they're creating urgency, right? You need to pay your invoice now. Not please pay your invoice or your invoice is available, please pay it. No, now, right? So they're trying to create a level of urgency. And then we go down and we're like, oh, to customize what's included. Poor grammar, spelling mistake, A lot of emails are much worse than this. Trust me, I get tons of them with faxing and things like that. And then you're like, okay. Then you mouse over that link that says set up your message center preferences, and you see an IP address. You will never in a Microsoft or legitimate email see an IP address with /invoice. So that means they've compromised some level of server or something where they're hosting this. The other thing to look at there is it doesn't say HTTPS. If you don't see HTTPS, that means it's not TLS encrypted, which is, again, the default now for most websites. That's another red flag saying, okay, well, wait, maybe I shouldn't click on this. And then below that, if you went down and moused over, maybe like edit release preferences, things like that. Otherwise, this looks legitimate. They have an unsubscribe at the bottom, Microsoft Corporation. That's legitimate. There's a privacy statement. That link actually probably will be at work. But what you have to do is do the cumulative part. Look at the email address. Look at the attachment. Read it. Is it generic? Is it creating a level of urgency that doesn't seem quite right? And then when you mouse over the link and you see an IP address, like if it doesn't say a name like Microsoft.com or portal.office.com or something like that, you need to be really careful with what you click on. So I hope this video brought you some clarity as we get through week number 2 of Cybersecurity Awareness Month, Phight the Phish. This is an important thing to go through. All your employees should be trained on this. I'm going to include a link to our website where you can download that for free. There's no need to go through and fill out a form or anything like that. We're just making this free. We're not putting it behind a wall or anything like that. We want to create value for you. That's our goal. Our goal is to help protect companies. So if you have any questions, comments, please post down below. Contact us. So again, on behalf of Techie Gurus, I'm Chris Burns. Stay cyber safe.